Let's open our eyes to the world that's around us. Science has the answers to the questions that have found us.
Malia Science.
Uh-oh, Roland. I think we're running out of gas. Uh-oh, wait a minute. Oh, no. Uh-oh.
Wait, don't.
Oh, man, we just ran out of gas. Oh.
Wait, don't cars run on fossil fuels?
Well, yeah, they do.
Well, you are in luck.
I don't think the car's gonna run on this fossil. That's not what they mean by fossil fuels. When we get back to the house, let's make a video learning about fossil fuels.
Yeah.
Okay, about 4,000 years ago is the first evidence of fossil fuels. In China, there was some guy who just probably was really cold and didn't have any wood for a fire. And he discovered these black rocks and said, hey, I wonder if these black rocks burn. I'm gonna try it since I don't have anything else to burn. And sure enough, he found a way to light them on fire.
Hope this will work.
Whoa! And he discovered, hey man, these rocks burn.
Wow.
Woohoo! What a great discovery. This is really gonna help things out in my village.
Jeff.
Well, obviously, those black rocks he found were coal. And normally, rocks don't burn. But coal comes from living things that lived a long time ago in swamps. Living organisms. Let's talk about why coal burns. Come on, let's go inside where it's a little warmer. So here's a piece of charcoal. It's kind of like the coal that person found 4,000 years ago in China and said, boy, I wonder if this rock burns. And it did. But what makes this rock burn? It's the fact that it has energy in it. Energy that it got from the living organisms that it's made out of. Okay, all living things have energy, right? Well, where does that energy come from? Where do you think?
I don't know. Their food?
Their food, right. But where does their food energy come from? Where does the energy? Let's say I eat a hamburger. Where did that cow get its energy?
It's food?
Right, the plants it ate. Okay, where did those plants get their energy?
Plants don't eat.
Right, but they make energy. They're what we call producers because they are the only organisms that can make their own energy. Everything else needs to get it from plants in some fashion. But where do they get their energy from? They get it from the sun. The sun is a star that's burning and giving off energy all the time. And plants, like this guy here, can turn sunlight into energy. And some of that energy it uses to grow, but some of it stores in its cells. It stores the energy inside each little cell. And they've been doing this since the very first plants. And this energy doesn't go away even when they die. So let's say I wanted to start a fire at the fire pit. I could burn a tree. Why can I burn a tree? Because, well, that tree grew, it produced its own energy from sunlight. And then when you cut it down, the energy is still inside the tree, the logs that we burn. Well, this energy doesn't go away even after hundreds of millions of years. So, if this plant was in a swamp 300 million years ago with all its plant buddies and it died, the energy's still there. If it got covered by rocks and water and swamp and other mud, the energy's still in this plant. It won't look like a plant. It'll start to break down and become like a mush and a gush. Sometimes it gives off gases and the energy's still in the gases. But over a long period of time, it will actually turn into a rock. It could be a soft rock, a hard rock, but this rock is made from the plant material and it still has the energy in it, and we can release that energy by adding heat. We can burn it. So the plant matter from swamps hundreds of millions of years ago turns into coal, which is one form of fossil fuel. And we can dig this up and burn it. It's been used, like we said, that guy in China, the first recorded incidents was 4,000 years ago, but people have been using it since the Romans, and in Britain, they can find it right, Great Britain, England, they could find it right along the shores. They call it sea coal, and they would burn it. And the Romans came over and said, wow, this is cool stuff. We're going to dig this up. And then later on in Europe, in the 1800s, 1200s, I mean, they said, you know, there's so many people living in England, there's not enough trees to burn. We need to find something else to burn. So they started burning coal. And it became a widely used fossil fuel. We call it a fossil because, like our fish fossil, it came from organisms that lived a long time ago. It's a trace of living organisms and the energy that they made hundreds of millions of years ago. And there's other types of fossil fuels too. There's natural gases. Natural gases come from organisms that lived in the sea or in the ocean. Now, you don't have to go to the ocean to get them. You can, but remember, a lot of this area was all covered in ocean hundreds of millions of years ago. So we can dig down and find natural gas almost anywhere.
So fossil fuels must be useful.
Oh, they are useful. They're very useful. As a matter of fact, this heater we're sitting on right now is water heated by natural gas. But they also have a downside.
Huh?
Yeah.
What?
Well, first of all, fossil fuels are a non-renewable resource. You know what non-renewable means?
It's not renewable?
Right. Good. Well, imagine your library. You can take out a book and renew it, can't you?
Uh-huh.
Well, and then somebody else can take out that book. But what if the books in your library were non-renewable? Well, then if you took out a book and you just got to keep it and it was gone forever, by the end of a year, your library would be pretty empty, wouldn't it?
Yeah, there are a lot of kids.
Right. Well, this fossil fuels take hundreds of millions of years to produce, but we use it very, very quickly. So eventually, some people think even by the year 2060, which is a theory, we might be out of fossil fuels and we'll have to turn to other forms of energy to heat our homes and run our cars. But there are a lot of other forms of energy. They're just a little bit more expensive now, but some of them are better for the environment. Ethanol. Ethanol is a chemical that comes from plants, more energy, but we can make it right away and it burns and we could use it to fuel our cars. Anything that moves we can get energy from, like wind or water. These are different forms of energy. Or even like plants, we can use solar power and make energy from the sun. And someday we're going to have to do that because we cannot make fossil fuels and we can't. Eventually they're going to run out. Let's look at a little example of how fastly we might be using up fossil fuels. Here I have some yummy salami. And let's pretend that I am just the whole fossil fuel system. I'm the plants in the sun, and I am making this. I'm making it. And I've been doing this for millions of years. I got a big pile of salami here. Then along came humans. This was before humans even came about. And we're gonna let Troy, our dog, play the part of humans. Sorry, Olivia. Troy! In comes humans onto the earth, and they start making fossil fuels. Troy! Here's some fossil fuels, humans. Oh boy, look how fast he's getting rid of those fossil fuels. I'm still making them, but guess what?
Not making them fast enough.
No, and eventually, that quick, we ran out of fossil fuels. He's still looking for them. Sorry, Troy, you're gonna have to find something else. Oh, he got some fossil fuels right from the sun. All right, and eventually, there's no more fossil fuels. No matter how fast, even though I'm still making them, they're all gone because we gobble them up. The other bad thing about fossil fuels is sometimes they can be hard on the environment. They can be hard on the environment.
No more fossil fuels.
So, for example, this is a piece, no more fossil fuels. This is a piece of shale. Oh, that's not edible. You want to try and get the food out of there? No. So, shale had so many living organisms in it that there are some fossil fuels in there. And people use something called fracking. Fracking is a way that they pump water into beds of shale and break it up, and then it releases natural gases like are in this later, and they can burn. You need to add a little spark. But the problem with this is, you know what else is in the ground?
What?
The water we drink. Remember that last video we made about water? The water that we drink is also in the ground. So sometimes when this material is coming back up through the ground, it gets into our water tables and it pollutes it. So that's not very good. Also, with fossil fuels, you can have accidents like oil spills. And those are really, really hard to clean up, and they can really damage marine life. Let's look at a little oil spill that we're gonna make and see if we can clean it up in a way. Try some different ways and see what it does to marine life. Or birds, any type of life. Come on. Okay, so we said sometimes fossil fuels can be damaging to the environment and the animals that live there. One of the worst things that can happen is an oil spill. That's when like a ship carrying oil has a leak or crashes, and this has happened several times in our history, and it does a lot of damage to the marine life that lives there. So here we have some water, and in here we just have some vegetable oil, which isn't quite oil, but it's got about the same density as oil, which means when I add it to the water, it comes to the top. Ooh, there's some food coloring. Now the food coloring was bad. But see, all this oil is staying on the top. It's a less of a density than water, which means it'll stay on the top. And obviously, fish and aquatic animals, birds that might be around the ocean, they're not built to live in oil or to have oil on their skin. So let's say you got some feathers there. Let's say a bird tries to land on some oil. Well, the whole density's dry. He's gonna sink. He's gonna sink. And look, he picks up all that yucky oil from onto his feathers, and he can't swim anymore. You know, fish that try and put this oil through their gills, it doesn't work. You know, their gills don't work with oil. There's no oxygen in oil. They get the oxygen out of water, not oil. So unfortunately, a lot of marine life dies when there's an oil spill. And humans try and clean it up. But how do you think we can get all that oil off the surface of the water?
And especially all the birds and fish that have already touched it.
Yeah, sometimes people spend a lot of time and energy trying to clean up those birds. They take them, they capture them, and they clean them up and then release them into the wild once they're better. And we do that to as many as we can. But how can we get this oil off the water? Well, people do different things. You know, could we use cotton? Well, you know, we got quite a bit of oil there, but we also got a lot of the water too. You know, these are just fuzz balls that you would think might help it like cotton, but still, it picks up oil, but that's mostly water on there. One thing they do, well, could we use soap?
It'll clean your hands.
Well, look at the soap. It pushes the oil away. It does. It pushes that oil away. But unfortunately, the chemicals in soap aren't good for animals either. So it might be fine for this, but it's not good for oceans. One thing they do is they take a string, a big giant rope, and drag it across. They drag it across the ocean, the surface of the ocean, and they pull it all to one side, all the oil to one side, and then one place. And then they pump up that area. Got to keep that online. They pump up that area and they filter that water and try and get all the oil out. Again, it's not perfect, and a lot of marine life is lost. A sponge, same thing. I can't clean this up with a sponge. I might get some of it, but I'm also getting a lot of water and the plants that live in that water. So oil spills are bad. They can really, really hurt the ocean ecosystem.
How do we clean it up though?
Well, like they use that string, but the string is kind of a mixture of our cotton balls. It soaks up some of the oil, but it pushes it into one spot. Whew, and then Troy comes and saves the day.
Yeah, drink up all that oil.
If we only had an animal that ate oil, yes, right. And maybe they'll start a fire on that certain thing. It'll burn up all the oil. But No, they push all the oil to a certain area to try and do minimal damage to the plants and animals that live there. And then they filter it through machines that clean the water. And again, it's not perfect, but it's the best we have.
Huh. Black is already spread everywhere.
Yeah,
Doesn't seem we have an effective method.
Yeah, we don't have a great method for cleaning up oil. So the best thing we do is make sure we don't have an oil spill. Like I said, accidents happen. And when we find cleaner sources of energy, like sunlight, like hydroelectric energy we get from moving water or windmills, and these type of accidents don't happen.
Huh. So if fossil fuels are dangerous, why do we use them?
Well, that's a good question. You know, right now we use them because many things in our society are set up to run on fossil fuels. And it's not just that car. You don't want to have to push the car everywhere we go, or do we? Well, that's what you would have to do until we come out with electric cars or cars that run on ethanol. That chemical we said that comes from plants that we can make quicker than waiting 100 million years. So plastic bottles, anything that's made of plastic comes from some sort of petroleum or fossil fuel. So until we find a way to provide our society with those things, which we're working on every day, we still use fossil fuels because they're relatively cheap, even though gas prices seem to be going up. Fossil fuels are cheap compared to other things. But, like we said, someday we're gonna run out and we will have to find other sources of energy because it's a non-renewable resource. And that's why when we have a non-renewable resource, we have to practice conservation, the wise use of natural resources. And we can do this by carpooling, by not throwing away plastic bottles, or using reusable drinking water. Don't ask your parents for a ride when you could take your bike. You know, things like that. And, you know, make them last as long as we can. But eventually, we are going to have to find other sources of energy. So, that's it for now, Malia gang. Remember, practice conservation. We'll see you next time.
Bye.